Welcome to Pokémon Legends Arceus, the newest installment in the Pokémon series. It's a pretty big switch up from the usual formula, and it's actually pretty good. I delved into the game on release and I found myself wondering, how many Pokemon do you have to catch to beat Pokémon Legends Arceus? Getting the answer to that question took me about 40 something hours, a lot of tedious grinding, and one color-coded spreadsheet. Before all that, we need to get onto the same page. What does it mean to catch a Pokemon? There are three main definitions, at least according to me. Firstly, when you throw a Pokeball and the Pokemon stays in it, that's a catch. Then when you throw a Pokeball, the Pokemon stays in it and then is available to you in your party and or pasture, that's a catch. Or alternatively, the number shown on your Pokedex screen, which counts each Pokemon and its evolutions individually as a catch. I know it's all semantics, I'm going with definition number 2. Also, when I say how many Pokemon does it take to beat the game, I'm talking about reaching the credits at the end of the main storyline. That out of the way, our journey begins in a realm beyond time and space. Arceus tells us to seek out all Pokemon, upgrades our phone, and we are dropped onto Prelude Beach. We apparently fell from the space-time rift in the sky into the Hisui region. In other words, we just got isekai'd and it's time for adventure! Beep beep! Our new friend Professor Laventon, who wears a very silly hat, asks us to help him catch the 3 starters hanging around the area. Since this is a tutorial sequence, we cannot ignore it. That said, while we capture all 3 Pokemon and Pokeballs, none of them are available to us in our party or pasture, so these don't count as catches for the video, hence the prior semantics. Afterwards, we travel into Jubilife Village, where we're introduced to the Wallflower Canteen, Benny the Cook, Akari the Recruit, and Silene, captain of the Galaxy Team's Survey Corps. To sum things up, Galaxy Team is an organization that is relatively new to the region, and it's their aim to explore and understand the region and its Pokemon. That aside, in order to avoid getting expelled from the village and possibly dying, we must go out into the Obsidian Fieldlands and catch 3 species of Pokemon, Bidoof, Starly, and Shinx. To assist in this mission, we get to pick our starter from those that we saw with the professor previously. For the sake of this challenge, the choice you make probably does matter, but not enough to actually affect things too much, so either way, I went with my personal favorite, Cyndaquil. Outside, before we could leave the village, we meet traveling merchant Volo, who challenges us to our first proper fight. For the most part, this works entirely as you expect, so it's no problem. Departing, we head into the Fieldlands camp. This is where we can return to rest and heal our Pokemon, store or grab items from our item box, craft, purchase goods, or report our findings to the professor. For now, we just follow Akari and she walks us through the process of catching our 3 target species, a Bidoof, a Starly, and a Shinx. Afterwards, we report to the professor and immediately head back to the captain. ここにいる者を新たな調査兵団として迎え入れる。これが本物の敬礼だ。心臓を捧げよう。Now properly recruited into the Survey Corps, we report to Commander Kamado. After some very intense introductions, it's back to the captain, who brings up the driving force of this game and challenges stars. We start as a no-star recruit, and we need to build up research points via the Pokedex to achieve more stars, which will eventually unlock new areas and thus allow us to continue onward through the game. Outside, we get a quick introduction to crafting, but more importantly, the Pokedex. I should also point out that there are side quests in this game, aka requests. Throughout my playthrough, I did a small number of these, but that was more than enough to know that they aren't really important to this challenge. The rewards are always items, helpful, but not crucial to our success. Also, about this time I stopped off at the salon and I got a new haircut, which I would later regret, and I continued exploring. To the left of the Galaxy Hull is an elderly lady selling charms. These charms can help us by making you lose fewer items, faint less frequently, or stay in good health. Again, useful, but not crucial to our success. At this point, we're given the freedom to just run around, so let's discuss the Pokedex and research stuff. As stated before, you get a star by ranking up after reaching the appropriate amount of research points. You get 10 points for each research task completed. A Pokemon research level is the number of individual tasks completed, and you need to at least get to level 10 to have the Pokedex entry count as completed. That rewards you with 100 extra points, so that is a huge priority. Thankfully, just about every single Pokemon has enough tasks to let you actually complete their entry without catching extra ones. I should note that a move is counted as seen if either you or the enemy Pokemon uses it. Also, for defeating, it only counts when it's the appropriate Pokemon as an enemy that faints, so I can't rack up defeat Bidoof tasks by tossing my Bidoof into a deadly alpha. Speaking of, in this game there are alpha Pokemon hanging around specific spots across the world. For now, these are very dangerous entities that should be avoided, as they're much higher level with moves that we can't hope to survive. Also, another important thing, this game has an accelerated day-night cycle. You can sit around and let time move forward, or just jump to specific points by sleeping at the tent. Often, the Pokemon that spawn in a given area vary depending on the time, so those starter Bidoof spawns are actually Drifloon after nightfall. Also, you can and will get ganged up on out in the wild. Now, at this point, I spent quite a while with Cyndaquil, having to beat up various Pokemon while I collected any nearby resources. Early on, I wasn't sure what challenge I was actually going for, so I was not being very efficient with my tasks. Either way, I got enough points to rank up, which means reporting back to Captain Silene in town. Now, with a star, we get access to more plot. After beating up Akari's Pikachu, we met Zizu, captain of the Security Corps. As she explains, once a Pokemon masters a particular move, you can have it perform a strong or agile form of said move. A lot of tasks require one of those types of moves, so that is more important to us. Also, while it was mentioned earlier, I will reiterate, in this game your Pokemon are never limited to knowing just 4 moves. Outside of battle, you can freely swap in and out moves. This is great because there are certain Pokédex tasks that have you defeat a given Pokemon with a given move type. Move swapping will let us cover a wider range of tactics than we would be able to do otherwise. Out in the Fieldlands yet again, we meet with Mai from the Diamond Clan. Unfortunately, her Munchlax is an unintended roadblock as it just bodies my Cyndaquil. Early on, like I said, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, so I was actually just focusing on Cyndaquil. So I spent a lot of time farming XP and Pokemon tasks with just them. Now, you might be seeing that there are a lot of tasks that are technically complete, but the thing is that you only can finish a task and turn it in for points if you've caught the Pokemon that the task belongs to. So no matter how many Drifloons I pop or Wurmples I roast, they're not going to give any points unless I commit to catching them, so that's unfortunate. After an hour of confused grinding, I finally won using my level 16 starter, and I continued on with the plot. Our next challenge is an Alpha Kricketune. While only level 12, it is fairly strong. Thankfully, losing a battle or even having all of your Pokemon faint does not result in a blackout. You can simply heal up and head back in. Burning the Cricket pleases the guardian of this area, Weirdeer, which is neat. Back in town, we're introduced to the heads of the rival clans, Adaman of the Diamond Clan, and Iridia of the Pearl Clan. They have opposing viewpoints on the deity Sinnoh, how to act, how to dress, basically everything. They're rivals through and through, and we're just sort of there. To sum things up, there are various noble Pokemon out there that the two clans look up to and look after. Each noble has a human warden that looks after them. Cleavor, the noble of the woods in the Obsidian Fieldlands, is in a frenzy, and we're tasked with visiting its warden and finding a way to calm the poke down. Along the way, I chose to evolve my Flameo into a Quilava. Which was actually a bit of a mistake. Starter Pokemon are basically impossible to encounter until the post-game, so by evolving Cyndaquil before finishing all of its tasks, that's like 100 points that I will just not get back. It's rough now, but later on the amount of points needed will swell enough that 100 is just a drop in the bucket, so it's not that big a deal. Either way, this little cowboy is Warden of Cleavor. Like most subsequent Wardens, he doesn't trust us, so we must beat up his partner Pokemon to prove ourselves. After some discussions back at town, we return to the Deer Track Heights camp to meet with Mai and Adaman. We get a Celestial Flute. We could play this untextured metal cylinder to summon Weirdeer whenever we want, who will carry us all over the place. At last, we are ready to use some newly crafted bombs to quell Cleavor. This is basically a boss battle. The noble will rampage around, trying to quite literally murder us, while you have to dodge around and avoid those attacks. Hitting the noble with a bomb will tick down its frenzied meter. When the meter gets low enough, or in this case when he runs into a wall, you can initiate a fight. Winning the fight just stuns the noble for a time, letting you bomb it even more, so it's not required. While it's pretty straightforward, these battles are actually really cool, and they can be genuinely challenging later on. Eventually, the noble's frenzy will dissipate into the air and we're rewarded with a plate of some kind, this one being the insect plate. The usage of this is, if you know, you know. We report our success to Commander Kamado before eating some potato mochi, and then, before we could sleep, we get visited by some little girl named Vessa. She gives us an odd keystone which lets us see purple floating wisps throughout the world. So basically, if this is a Breath of the Wild adjacent game, then this is the closest parallel to Korok Seeds. That said, there's only like 100 and something wisps, and collecting a certain amount of them gets you various items from Vessa. Much like with the side quest rewards, these are helpful but not required for our challenge, so I just sort of got them whenever I saw them. Onwards, Arizu of the Diamond Clan reaches out for help. It seems that there is another frenzied noble Pokemon in a different area, this time the Mirelands, and our commands us to help. The thing is that Captain Silene won't allow us to visit the Mirelands until we've earned enough research points for our next rank up. This means that we now must get as many tasks done as possible to earn points with the Pokemon available to us. As such, I recollected my Bidoof, Shinx, and Starly and started grinding in earnest. While doing this, I quickly realized that there are a bunch of items out there, but I have very few spaces in my satchel. Thankfully, this guy in the Galaxy Hall will teach you to create another space in your satchel for an ever-increasing amount of money. That's where a lot of the money I earned from selling items I collected went to. Also, while working through my task for the 3 non-starter pokes, I found myself scouring the village in search of the 3 rambunctious Bidoofs. Once I found all of them, they were very sneaky, I finished the request which checked off that one task for Bidoof. A bit later, I got into a weird spot. Starly has very few tasks that we can actually do, just 8 before evolving. Thankfully, once evolved, that actually checks off a task, which is worth double, so you can actually complete Starly's entry. I also evolved Bidoof into Bibarel. Unfortunately, he's the only Pokemon we have that has just 2 evolutions total, but he'll be quite useful as he is the only one capable of any water or ground type moves. Another important note, I should have put this before, Staravia, much like Starly, has a spot for number you've evolved. As you can see, Staravia already has 1 marked off because the game counts it when you evolve Starly into Staravia, as well as later on when you evolve Staravia into Staraptor. So you get a sort of double dip situation, which is nice. That said, I spent quite some time fighting wild Pokemon to rack up use X moves tasks. I also tried to target other Pokemon in my evolutionary trees to work on the number of defeated tasks. I wasn't super efficient, but that's a topic for later. At some point my Shinx got high enough that I evolved it into a Luxio, and that was about when I was able to complete enough tasks to push me over into the next research point rank. Now an official 2-star cadet, I'm allowed to venture into the Crimson Mirelands. Awesome. On our way to the plot, we have another battle against Akari. I know she's trying, but her Mime Jr. and Pikachu don't make for much of a challenge. Out in the Mirelands, our first stop is the Solaceon Ruins, where we meet with Kalaba, whatever, of the Pearl Clan. Afterwards, we have to fight Volo because he just likes to be a part of the drama. It seems that a fragment of the wall engraving has been stolen by a trio of bandits, aka the Misfortune Sisters. I know they're trying to be evil and all, but the poses, the names, it gives off real Jesse and James Team Rocket vibes. After winning, we return the fragments, which convinces Granny that sometimes it's good to accept help, so we run over to fight Ursaluna into submission. Now, in Ursaluna's good graces, we can summon him whenever we want to ride around and look for buried treasure, which is nice, but I usually just opted to rush around on Weirdeer. When we report back to the professor, it turns out a unknown stuck to our back. Hate when that happens. You can find and catch unknown, but I'm not gonna do that. Next, it comes to light that Arizu, who is actually warden of Lilligant, is nowhere to be found, and the noble Lilligant is frenzied up. Ursaluna and his exceptional nose leads us to Arizu, who got an Aribu on her leg trying to calm the noble all by herself. We can now take on Lilligant herself. The area is nothing special, but her moveset is a bit more dangerous than Kleavor's. Most often, she'll jump around sending out a flowery shockwave that must be dodged. After a charge up, she'll release a circular wave that we have to dodge over. Much like with Kleavor, you can fight with a Pokemon if you want, but dodging and spamming bombs works just fine. Following this, we get yet another plate, some dialogue amongst characters, and yeah. The next area we will be investigating is the Cobalt Coastlands, and our captain, again, requests that we earn enough points to rank up to show our readiness. This means grinding some more tasks, which took me quite some time. For a bit of context, I started playing the game on January 27th at around 10 p.m. because that's when the game was available to play for me. On the 28th, which was a Friday, I played just a few hours in the morning and a few more in the evening. I calmed Ursaluna around 10 a.m. on the 29th Saturday, and I didn't get enough research points to rank up until 11:30 p.m. that same day. As such, I stopped recording every moment of gameplay because it's a lot of stuff and I only have so much hard drive space. But in the afternoon, I finished Quilava's entry and I moved on to Bibarl's, and I realized that this guy at the Deer Height camp will actually let you partake in balloon popping ride challenge. The reward isn't anything amazing, but it was fun, and I popped all the balloons in my first try, which was cool. While focusing on Bibarl and I guess Bidoof's tasks, I ended up at this spot near Ursa's Ring in the Mirelands, which has a few dedicated spawns to those two Pokemon, as well as an alpha that I occasionally tried to fight. Heading towards 8 p.m., I focused on Sandgem Flats, as I had a lot of Luxio and Luxray spawns, as well as some others I needed. At this point, I already evolved Flameo into a Typhlosion and Staravia into a Staraptor. Around 11 p.m. is when I found a shiny Bidoof that I decided to kill to maintain the integrity of the challenge. Dedication. Just as we approached midnight, I was finally ready to turn in some tasks. I had finished all of Bidoof, Bibarl, Staravia, most of Staraptor, all of Shinx, Luxio, and every single one of Luxrays. It was a lot of tasks, which pushed us into rank 3. Now a 3-star cadet, we're allowed to partake in some plots over in the Cobalt Coastlands, where we meet Polina of the Pearl Clan, warden of technically nothing. The previous noble Pokemon, Lord Arcanine, died, so she now watches over its son, a Growlithe. We need to survey Fire's Pit Island. It's only accessible via oversea travel. The only possible way is help of Basculegion, a big ol' fish. Iscan of the Diamond Clan wants to help, but can't make the fish food without the help of a Dusclops. That's unfortunate. If we're forced to catch another Pokemon, let's at least try to make the most of it. Dusclops and its evolutions can be found nearby at Deadwood Haunt. Since we want to maximize our task doing, I focused on catching a Duskull at night without being spotted. It was a bit nerve-wracking because I didn't want to mess it up, so I temporarily turned off autosaves and I went for it. Thankfully, I got the Ghosty with minimal effort on my first try. Afterwards, I re-enabled autosaves, and I tossed all of the XP gems and effort value mineral items at him. If he's going to be fighting a bunch of stuff to fill out tasks, might as well give him every possible advantage. After not too long, I completed all of Duskull's tasks that required him to be a Duskull, and I went ahead and evolved him into a Dusclops. This let me make Basculegion's favorite food, befriending him, but oh no! The non-noble's son, Growlithe, has been stolen by the misfortunes. Anyways, I went to bed, and the next morning, now Sunday the 30th, I continued with the plot. At the Fiery Island, we have consecutive fights against each of the bandits. Dusclops took down Abomasnow, but fell to Toxicroak. No worries because Staraptor and the rest of my pokes are pretty overleveled, so we stomp them. After the battle is done, little Growlithe finds his courage, jumps in, and evolves into Arcanine before getting struck by the Frenzy Lightning. This scares off the fortunes, but now we have to calm him down with some more high-octane Dark Souls dodging. For real, this is actually a tough encounter. It takes place on a weirdly shaped bit of land surrounded by magma, so you can't jump across that. Arcanine has an attack that can leave behind a giant circle of fire, which can completely block the field. Also, at some point, he'll charge up a pillar of flame. If you don't bomb him in the face, this move will 100% kill you no matter what, so you gotta be careful of that. On my second attempt, I focused on baiting him into charging back and forth near one of the edges of the arena, which seemed to work quite well. Once the noble was quelled, it was back to Jubilife for some more celebratory potato mochi and plot. But first, before we can go to the Coronet Highlands, we of course have to rank up yet again. We need another 1800 points, so we'll need to finish absolutely every task available to us. This ended up being the most tedious grinding session thus far. The only place we can find Duskulls, Dusclops, and Dusknoir is the previously mentioned Deadwood Haunt. The Duskull and Dusclops share the same spawn points as Drifloon and Drifblim, so it's up to chance whether or not we get what we want. Also, Dusknoir can only appear as the singular alpha Pokemon, which is tough to fight because if you don't catch it unaware, you'll get ganged up on. I did eventually realize that it was more efficient to spam the tent. You can sleep till morning in the nearby camp, visit the haunt to make sure the game cycles out the ghosts for birds, sleep till night, visit, and this will force the Pokemon to leave and return. I think this increases the chance of getting a different grouping and thus what we want. Annoyances aside, I finished up what I needed to do for Dusclops and I evolved him into Dusknoir, and look at those tasks. 70 strong style moves just for 5 tasks? Yeah. At 7 PM on Sunday, all of my pokes were now level 50 and above, and I was running out of tasks to complete. I had completed Typhlosion's entry, which took forever, as well as most of Dusclops' family, save for a few here and there. Staraptor still had some tasks to be done, but we're still like 700 away from the next rank. If each task at its baseline gives 10 points, that's 70 more that we would need, and that's just not happening. So we need to select a new Pokemon to be caught and raised to get enough research points to access the Highlands. To do this in the most efficient way possible, I worked on a spreadsheet. So I started using this Pokedex spreadsheet I found out there, though it was much simpler when I found it. Credits on screen to the original creators. I then added some conditional formatting to help narrow down things. I cut out every Pokemon line that does not have at least 3 evolutions, as well as those that are not currently available. I then painstakingly went through every single Pokemon left and manually counted the tasks by looking at their Pokedex task list and counting up the amount of tasks that were possible, assuming we caught 1 poke in the most optimal way possible. It's quite possible I made a mistake here or there, but I made sure to double check the counts at the end, and I added them all up, and here's the list. So yeah, I believe that Machop is the evolutionary line with the most possible tasks available at 110, but Machamp can only be found in the 5th region, so its 13 tasks involving stunning and defeating are not currently possible, meaning that the real total right now is 97. As such, the next most efficient catch right now is Rhydon. Rhydon and Rhyhorn can be found in the Mirelands, while Rhyperior is limited to the Highlands. That's no problem because raising Rhydon should get us to Rhyperior before we run out of Rhy tasks. After a bit of candy shopping and some more grinding, it was time to catch our next poke. The Rhy Boys can be found around Boulder Roll Slope, Diamond Heath, and the Shrouded Ruins. We needed to catch a heavy specimen, which I did by, again, turning off autosave, manual saving, and praying. And again, I got it on my first try. Very nice. Much with the prior pokes, finishing Rhyhorn's tasks wasn't too bad, so I evolved it before too long. Rhydon's tasks were more obnoxious. Meanwhile, I searched with Ursaluna and my own eyeballs for our first evolutionary item, specifically a protector, which we need to get in order to evolve Rhydon into a Rhyperior. You can purchase a protector back at town using merit points, which you earn merit points from finding and retrieving lost satchels from other players across the world. At the time, I thought this was exclusive to multiplayer. It seems that there is a single player component where they just sort of spawn them for you, but I wanted to do it without that. I did eventually find one out in the wild thanks to a random space-time distortion. Those are random events where a giant purple bubble appears around, and for a time there is a bunch of expensive loot and different Pokemon roaming around. With that, my Rhyperior is done with evolving, but the task grind continues. A bit later, I turned in a bunch of tasks which propelled us into rank 4 and thus even more plot. Speaking of, the plot is pretty straightforward. We travel up and through the Highlands with a mysterious amnesiac Ingo and prove ourselves to the obnoxious Melly.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
Also, we get our next rideable Pokemon, a Sneasler. It's a very dumb name, but Sneasler is super handy in letting us climb up about any surface. Also, our character in the container reminds me a lot of Demon Slayer. It's another very challenging fight. Electrode often sends out balls of electricity that will follow you around as you spam bombs, while you have to avoid falling, exploding Voltorbs. You actually move faster while running than you do while spam dodging, so be careful with that. Electrode's strongest move is to follow you while charging a large spherical blast. I ended up getting it done on my second try, so it was back to town, some more mochi, and another roadblock.
Oh god! I'll never make it this time! This is the end! Anyway.
At this point, I had only the most annoying tasks left, like stunning Rhyperior, that is also an alpha. Three times, defeating it a bunch, and some of which needing an ice move. Thankfully, with Luxray's Ice Fang, that's doable, but Alpha Rhyperior hits very hard, and like I mentioned, there's only one Rhyperior spawn, as far as I'm aware, anywhere in the game. At this rate, my pokes would basically outlevel the final region before we even get there. At some point, I shifted focus to finishing up Staraptor and Dusk Noir tasks, specifically the one where I stun the ghost with items and pelt the bird with rocks. Both are pretty annoying because there aren't many spawns for either, at least that's what I thought. The Pokedex and whatever articles I could find online at the time say that Staraptor can only be found in Obsidian Fieldlands, Nature's Pantry, where it's flying and can't be fought, and the Coastlands Deadwood Haunt, but that's not true at all. Staraptor and its evolutions can spawn on this dolphin-shaped island in Tranquility Cove, and at least 4-star raptor spawns are on top of the mountainous ridge around Lake Verity in the Fieldlands. If I knew that, during my grind I could have saved hours. Anyways, many hours into the challenge, I realized that there were some side quests I had overlooked involving the general store in town. The shopkeep and Galaxy Quartermaster have some sort of grudge, and you can actually be their go-between by bringing items to the Quartermaster. Said items can be hard to find, but at this point I've gathered so much random crap that it was no problem. Each time you do part of their storyline, presumably unlocked as you obtain new ranks, more items are added to the shop. The last one I did unlocks the purchase of Sticky Globs, which are, I think, the best item for stunning Pokemon available to us. This makes things super easy because now I can finish Dust Noir, but yeah. We are still 1,600 points away from rank 5, so let's figure out our next recruit. We have access to the Highlands now, so we can choose Elekid, Gible, or Cleffa when we couldn't previously. Let's add them to the list and see how they stack up. So none of the new options come out on top, so I went with Chimchar, thinking that it would be easy because all of its forms are available on the same map, but that was a mistake. I did catch a Chimchar as optimally as possible, but the thing is that you can finish all of its tasks, but there are so few available spawns that this grind hurt my soul. There are only 2 Chimchar spawns on Romnus Island, and an alpha that is always an Infernape, at least for like the 5 hours I was doing this. Inferno is supposed to spawn somewhere on the island, but I literally never saw one. There's also one spawn point that can be a Chimchar or Monferno by this rock in Deer Track Heights, but that spawn can also be a Starly and Staravia, so I spent like 5 hours checking and rechecking all these spawn points, visiting the tent, sleeping to morning and night to try to cycle spawns, but I just never saw Monferno in person, so I couldn't feed it, and thus I couldn't do its 5 tasks. I eventually gave up on that, and I turned in every other task related to the Fire Apes, and we still aren't there. We need another 570 points. Since every entry is complete, there are no 100-point bonuses yet to be collected, so we would need at least 57 tasks. There are those 10 for Cyndaquil I haven't done, 5 from Monferno, but that's it. Even if I had been 100% efficient at this point, I am 99.9% sure that we need at least one more Pokemon to finish things off. So I got me a heavy Machop, and I went back to grinding. Thankfully, this isn't too bad. Orburrow Tunnel has 4 or so Machop spawns, with 2 or 3 more above on Obsidian Falls. There are also a few Machoke spawns up there, and I rarely found them replaced with other pokes. I was worried because Machoke has to be defeated with Psychic type moves 10 times, but luckily Dust Noir can learn Psychic, so we have that covered. After just a few hours, I turned in what I had, which allowed me to reach rank 5, and thus, the grind was over. Also, while not necessary, I did use a linking cord I found somewhere to evolve our Choke into a champ. He's strong, but look at the rest of them, all level 70s. Nice. Alabaster Icelands is a bit more of the same. We chase Warden Sabby around, prove ourselves to her, and eventually gain trust of the rideable Pokemon Braviary. It's actually really cool. Braviary lets us soar across the world like a souped up version of Link's paraglider. With this newfound mobility, we retrieve the Eternal Ice, favored food of this area's noble. Said noble, Avalugg, is the size of a small mountain, so this fight is challenging. Rather than sharing the arena with the Poke, we are atop a small hill dodging for our life. While it seemed possible to last long enough to bomb him to victory, I did end up sending out Flameo to unleash a strong form overheat, which is, dang. Back at town, we report our victory to the commander and celebrate with potato mochi yet again. I know it's supposed to be really good, but like, change it up, guys. Either way, our dinner is interrupted by the end of the game. I mean, some kind of disaster. Kamado goes into full conspiracy mode and blames us for literally everything. As such, we are exiled from town. Thankfully, we have some help from Akari, the professor, some peeps from the Diamond and Pearl clans, our captains Abra, Volo, and this random woman who just showed up, Kogita. Said woman tells us to visit the 3 lakes and complete its special Pokemon trials. Outside, we get a choice which mostly doesn't matter, but I chose to have Adaman come with me because I like the color blue. At Lake Verity, I beat up the Alpha Pokemon and answered Miss Spirit's questions for its plume. At Lake Valor, I beat up the Alpha Pokemon and spammed bombs until Azalf just gave me its fang? That must have hurt. And at Lake Acuity, I beat up the Alpha and solved Uxie's riddle for its claw. At the Shrouded Ruins, the 3 pokes then appeared and gifted me with a red chain, which apparently has the power to bind reality itself. With this, we're ordered by temporary commander Silene to follow after Kamado and the rest of his people up Mount Hornet because they decided to go up there and fight the space-time rift themselves. Along the way, Benny shows up for some reason. Turns out he's been a ninja this whole time, spying on us for Kamado. I did not see that coming. His fight is tough, but we're very overleveled, so it's not too bad. Then we face off against Kamado himself. Sure, he's imposing with his suit of armor, but my overleveled beaver is more than enough. Here at the Mountain's Peak Temple, our buddy Adaman, it would have been Iridia if we had picked her before, mentions that he's hearing voices from some Pokemon. Turns out it's Dialga talking to him, who we must face off against. I used my superior Bibarel to defeat it, but this doesn't work. If you defeat Dialga or Palkia, whichever one you're fighting, Kamado will call for a retreat, and then you get some dialogue telling you that you have to catch the legendary Pokemon. If you defeat it again, it's the same thing. It's a hard roadblock. To beat the game, we are forced to catch it. Afterwards, another rift appears and the other legendary Pokemon is here. Since the red chain was broken by subduing the first one, we must regroup and figure out something else for the other. The solution is to gather some Origin Ore to make an Origin Ball. With this, we return to the temple and get a really cool cutscene. Either way, it's a boss fight. Palkia summons meteor strikes that we can dodge, and sends out blast waves that we have to go over. It has some cool music, and it looks cool, but it's nowhere near as hard as the previous noble fights. In the cutscene, we catch our final Pokemon in one of coolest animations. Afterwards, everyone heads out and our character ominously looks up at the sky. Sure, there's probably more post-game, but look, it's the credits! Huzzah! My torment is finished. After the credits, I return to town, deposit my Pokemon to the pasture, and organize them for a final counting. By my definition, we've caught a total of 10 Pokemon, which is the answer to this video's title. It's 10. If you instead count every Pokemon I've placed into a Pokeball, then it's 12 because of the 2 starters we were forced to catch at the very beginning, technically. If for some reason you want to count it like the Pokedex, adding up every form we were forced to get, then it's technically 24 because Machamp 25 wasn't required, but either way the challenge is done, so let's finish up the video. I think we know the answer to how many Pokemon do you need to catch to complete the Pokedex. It would just be one of every single one, but let me know if there's something else you want to see as a follow-up video to this one. In the meantime, I'd like to thank my channel members for their support with an Avalugg-sized thanks to Achilles Rhodes and Captain Crayfish for being super fans. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, perhaps subscribe for more videos from me, and if you like hearing me talk about stuff, why not go over and hear me talk about movies and TV shows on my newer side channel, Consume Content. That's about it for this one. Goodbye.